December 2016. In the amber markets of Myanmar, a fossil dealer mistakes a 37mm relic for ancient plant matter and prices it at just $600. Paleontologist leader Xing sees what others miss. 8 vertebrae threaded with feathers, frozen for 99 million years. The only dinosaur tail ever found perfectly preserved, still colored chestnut and white. For paleontology, it's the equivalent of buying the Rosetta Stone at a yard sale. But Eva, as the specimen would be named, hides more than prehistoric secrets. Her journey could change what we know about evolution and what we're willing to pay for that knowledge. Hukong Valley's amber market is a study in chaos, stalls crowded with polished nuggets, brokers haggling in a blur of dialects, and the sharp scent of lacquer in the air. Here, value is a matter of perception, and perception can be astonishingly off the mark. On a battered wooden table, a fossil dealer slides a small piece of amber toward a visiting scientist. The specimen, just 37mm long, is already drilled and buffed for a pendant. The dealer squints, points to the filamentous shapes inside, and shrugs. Decorative plant. Nothing more. Price: $600. Not even a month's rent in Beijing. Not even a decent smartphone. In the world of amber, insect inclusions fetch more. Vertebrate remains, unless instantly recognizable, are often overlooked, lost to the jewelry trade, or ground up for varnish. Leader Xing, a paleontologist with a reputation for patience, leans in. He lifts the amber, angles it to the light, and sees what no one else in the room has noticed. The filaments aren't plant fibers. They're barbed, branching, anchored to a segmented core. No root system, no leaf veins. These are vertebrae, threaded with feathers. Xing keeps his reaction guarded. The dealer, indifferent, is ready to move on. The crowd presses closer, eager for a quick sale. Xing pays the asking price, no haggling, and pockets the specimen before anyone can reconsider. In that moment, a world-changing fossil nearly vanishes into obscurity for the cost of a used bicycle. In the amber market, luck and expertise are the only things standing between scientific revolution and oblivion. The specimen disappears into Xing's jacket, a $600 gamble against history's appetite for erasure. In the world of amber, there's no paperwork, no insurance, only the hope that a fossil won't vanish into someone's jewelry box or end up dissolved for lacquer. The risk isn't lost on Xing. Each hour in transit is another roll of the dice. Customs officers with questions, brokers with sticky fingers, rival buyers who'd pay double for a prettier pendant. But this time, luck holds. The amber, still warm from the market, is quietly routed out of Myanmar and into China. There's no fanfare, just a padded envelope and a chain of trusted hands. Once in Beijing, the fossil is logged and catalogued. The team gathers around the lab table, each scientist craning for a first look. 8 vertebrae, perfectly articulated, run the length of the specimen, just 37mm, but unmistakable. The feathers are still visible, branching and barbed, locked in amber's time capsule. In the sterile light of the lab, the specimen receives a new identity. Among colleagues, it's simply called Eva. No ceremony, no official naming moment, just a nickname that sticks, as informal as the paperwork that brought her here. In the end, what matters isn't the name, but that Eva survived the journey at all. Paleontology's version of slightly used minor cosmetic damage. The real work and the real revelations are about to begin. Inside the Beijing lab, the amber rests motionless in its custom resin cradle. A technician calibrates the micro-CT scanner, entering parameters for a voxel size under 20 microns, enough to resolve the finest details without risking damage. The first scan begins. Each X-ray pulse slices invisibly through the amber, capturing a grayscale image just microns thick. Thousands of these slices accumulate, stacking into a digital anatomy that no human eye could see in the raw specimen. The computer reconstructs the data into a three-dimensional volume. As the model rotates on screen, the structure of the tail emerges. 8 vertebrae, perfectly articulated, each one fitting the next like segments in a flexible chain. The neural arches and centra are distinct. Growth lines, visible as faint bands, confirm the animal's juvenile age. No fusion at the joints. This was a hatchling, not yet grown. A lab technician, voice steady, notes the articulation. No disarticulation, no post-mortem shifting. This is an in-life arrangement. The bones are not crushed or scattered, a rarity for any fossil, let alone one encased in amber. The tail's gentle curve, preserved from the moment it was trapped, hints at a struggle frozen in time. Beyond the skeleton, the scan reveals soft tissue shadows, remnants of muscle, ligaments, and the base of each feather shaft. Feathers radiate out, their attachment points visible as faint halos along the vertebrae. The digital fly-through moves layer by layer, from the amber's surface down to the bone, then back out through the plumage. Every band, every barb rendered in 3 dimensions, undisturbed since the Cretaceous. No artifact of preparation, no evidence of modern tampering. The scan's resolution, less than 20 microns, validates every anatomical claim. The data is undeniable. For the first time, a dinosaur's tail can be explored from the inside out, its reality no longer a matter of faith or interpretation, but of measurable, reproducible fact. Under the stereo microscope, Eva's feathers resolve into a forest of fine structures, each one a pennaceous feather, the kind with a central shaft, or rachis, and barbs radiating outward. Pennaceous means symmetry, a central spine, barbs branching in even ranks, but without the tiny hooks that would zip them into a flight surface. Instead, these barbs splay loosely, forming a soft, downy fringe. The geometry is primitive, closer to insulation than to anything aerodynamic. In cross-section, the barbs are round, not flattened, and there's no sign of the interlocking barbules that stiffen modern bird feathers for flight. Scanning electron microscopy magnifies the landscape further, revealing the cellular architecture. Melanosomes, microscopic pigment bodies, cluster in patterns along the barbs. These are rod-shaped, densely packed, and still aligned after 99 million years. Their arrangement controls color, and here the evidence is direct. Chestnut brown running along the upper side of the tail, interrupted by crisp bands of white or pale yellow below. The contrast is not a trick of fossilization. It's a pigment code, preserved in 3 dimensions. The feathers themselves are not uniform. Some are longer, stiffer, projecting outward for maximum coverage. Others are short, plush, layered in between. This density traps air, creating a thermal barrier. Nature's solution for a tiny animal losing heat in the humid Cretaceous forest. There's no sign of flight adaptation, no asymmetry, no stiffening, no aerodynamic taper. These feathers are for warmth, not for lift. A specialist in feather microstructure reviews the imaging data, careful to note the limits. The specimen's surface is polished, some details blurred by amber's refractive quirks, and the fossil is juvenile. Still, the evidence is overwhelming. Pigment, structure, and arrangement all point to insulation as the primary function. As for color, evolution saved the peacock feathers for later. For Eva, camouflage and warmth mattered more than spectacle. The tail is not just a relic, it's a snapshot of biology in transition, caught between lizard and bird, between scales and plumage, between cold blood and warm. Before the amber tail, most textbooks still pictured dinosaurs as scaly, cold-blooded reptiles, giants plodding through a Mesozoic swamp, their skin bare and their blood slow. The discovery of Eva forced a new calculation. Here was a coelurosaur, a member of the same family that would one day give rise to tyrannosaurs and birds, covered not in scales, but in a dense pelt of feathers. Not flight feathers. These are pennaceous, yes, but loose and downy, lacking the interlocking hooks that would ever lift an animal from the forest floor. Their job is simple: trap heat, slow the loss of body warmth, and shield a tiny predator from the chill of Cretaceous nights. Insulation demands energy. A sparrow-sized dinosaur burning calories to stay warm in a humid, unpredictable climate could not survive on the metabolic rhythms of a lizard. Feathers like these are a hallmark of endothermy, warm-bloodedness. They point to a metabolism tuned for activity, for rapid growth, for the constant movement of a hunter or forager that cannot afford to slow down. The evidence is anatomical, not circumstantial. 8 vertebrae, each unfused and flexible, hint at agility. The density of the plumage, the arrangement of barbs, the very presence of pigment granules. These are all signatures of a body built to generate and retain its own heat. Eva's tail is not a blueprint for flight. It is a blueprint for survival, in a world where temperature matters, where being small means being vulnerable to every draft and shadow. The feathers are not evolutionary leftovers. They are the first solution to a problem as old as life itself: how to keep the engine running, even when the sun goes down. Museum corridors around the world began to echo with new conversations. Curatorial committees gathered behind closed doors, reviewing CT scans and feather micrographs. Text panels, once devoted to scales and claws, were quietly rewritten. At the Royal Saskatchewan Museum, Eva's arrival drew a steady stream of visitors: school groups, families, retired geologists, each pausing at the amber case where a dinosaur tail glowed with bands of brown and white. The exhibit emphasized more than spectacle. Side by side with the fossil, screens looped 3D fly-throughs from the original CT dataset, letting visitors rotate the tail, zoom in on feather barbs, and peer into the Cretaceous in 3 dimensions. Elsewhere, museums updated digital catalogs and classroom materials. The American Museum of Natural History added new models to its dinosaur halls, feathered and colored in patterns lifted straight from Eva's imaging files. London's Natural History Museum followed suit, integrating high-resolution prints of the tail's structure into its educational workshops. The datasets, CT slices, feather pigment analyses, annotated micrographs, were shared freely among institutions, uploaded to public repositories, and downloaded by educators from 5 continents. Attendance metrics told their own story. In Regina, the Feathered Dinosaurs exhibit saw a marked uptick in school bookings and repeat visits. Curators fielded questions from children who now pictured dinosaurs as warm, agile, and vividly colored. Across the globe, the traditional image of the scaly, lumbering reptile gave way to a new icon: a sparrow-sized predator, cloaked in down, its story reconstructed from a sliver of amber and a mountain of data. In Kachin State, the amber that encases dinosaur feathers is more than a scientific marvel. It is a currency of conflict. The mines lie deep in contested territory, where the ground yields resin and the profits fuel war. Human Rights Watch and United Nations reports trace millions in annual amber revenue, siphoned through a network of brokers and military-linked companies. At the mine face, miners labor under threat. Forced recruitment, extortion, and violence are routine. Soldiers and militia guards collect their cut before a single stone leaves the valley. Once extracted, the amber moves through a gauntlet of checkpoints. Cash changes hands in back rooms and border towns, with little oversight and no receipts. Brokers in Myitkina, Mi-Chin-U, and Mandalay sort the stones, skimming the best for export. The rest is sold locally or ground up for lacquer. For every polished nugget that reaches a jewelry stall or a scientist's bench, a portion of the price is already earmarked for armed actors. The trade is a pipeline, mine to market, market to military, violence paid for by fossilized sunlight. Testimonies from miners describe 12-hour shifts, collapsing tunnels, and armed overseers demanding quotas. Some are children, others debtors who cannot leave. The amber is both lifeline and trap. When a rare specimen like Eva surfaces, the money flows faster. Foreign buyers pay more, and the local war economy tightens its grip. A human rights researcher, voice steady, recounts interviews with families displaced by mine expansion and military raids. The fossil trade, she says, is not an abstract debate. It is a ledger of risk and suffering, written in amber and blood. The allure of scientific discovery is real, but so is the cost, measured not in dollars or museum labels, but in lives shaped by conflict. Scientific journals began to close their doors to new Burmese amber research. In 2018, editors at leading paleontology publications drafted explicit provenance clauses. No more silent acceptance of fossils with murky origins. Every submission now required a clear, documented chain of custody, and a statement on whether the specimen's purchase might have funded conflict or exploitation. The language was blunt. No provenance, no publication. At international conferences, the debate played out in packed auditoriums. Some argued that refusing to study new amber fossils would doom them to destruction, lost to jewelry markets, never to be seen by science. Others countered that every purchase, no matter how well-intentioned, sent money back to warlords and military-linked companies in Kachin. The room rarely reached consensus, but the mood shifted. The era of plausible deniability was over. Editors took the lead. One journal's chief, voice measured but resolute, explained the new policy. We have a responsibility not just to science, but to the communities affected by our work. If we cannot guarantee ethical sourcing, we cannot publish. Museums followed suit. When Eva went on display in Canada, the Royal Saskatchewan Museum posted a statement acknowledging the specimen's uncertain provenance and the ethical dilemma at its core. Other institutions adopted similar disclosures, some choosing digital replicas over physical specimens to avoid further entanglement. The self-imposed embargo became the norm. Researchers agreed to work only with fossils acquired before the new guidelines, or those with ironclad documentation. The scientific community, for all its hunger for discovery, drew a line. The cost of knowledge, it seemed, could no longer be ignored or quietly rationalized away. In December 2016, a 37mm dinosaur tail, perfectly preserved in Burmese amber, was purchased for $600. That specimen, known as Eva, revealed 8 articulated vertebrae, chestnut and white pennaceous feathers, and evidence that some dinosaurs were warm-blooded. For the first time, science could see the colors and microstructure of dinosaur feathers, not just their imprints. But the truth of Eva's origin remains inseparable from the conflict in Myanmar's Kachin state, where amber profits fund ongoing violence. Since 2018, major scientific journals require provenance disclosures and discourage new purchases of Burmese amber fossils. Many questions remain. How many more specimens lie undiscovered, and what else might they reveal about evolution? Today, Eva is displayed in a Canadian museum. Its scientific value clear, but its ethical cost unresolved. The world's only complete feathered dinosaur tail changed what we know about evolution. It also forced science to draw a line between discovery and responsibility.